They were already moving. The engines were running. The maps showed only one outcome. And then, one decision stopped an entire army, not with firepower, not with reinforcements, but with time. June 1944, just days after D-Day, Normandy was chaos. Smoke filled the air, roads were broken, communication lines barely worked. Allied forces were advancing inland, but German divisions were not retreating blindly. They were regrouping, preparing counterattacks, waiting for mistakes. At a critical crossroads near a small French village, a single Allied unit received new orders. Retreat immediately, fall back several kilometers. The intelligence reports were alarming. German armor was approaching fast. Staying meant annihilation. But the officer in command didn't move. His name was not famous, not yet. He wasn't a general. He didn't command thousands of men. He had fewer than 100 soldiers under his responsibility, exhausted, low on ammunition, cut off from reliable support. And still, he chose to stay. From the maps alone, the decision made no sense. The position had no strategic value on paper, just a road intersection, a few ruined buildings, mud, hedges, silence. But the officer understood something the maps didn't show: time. If the Germans passed that road before nightfall, they could reach a vulnerable Allied flank. Supply lines would be cut, units would be isolated, the advance could stall or collapse. So instead of retreating, he did the unthinkable. He ordered his men to prepare defensive positions, not permanent ones, temporary, hidden, silent. No unnecessary movement, no wasted shots. Every action calculated to create one illusion, that the position was heavily defended. The first German patrol appeared before sunset. Shots were exchanged, brief, precise, enough to force caution. The Germans pulled back. They waited. They reported resistance, not heavy, but organized. That was all the officer needed. As darkness fell, he ordered controlled fire from different positions, short bursts, then silence, then fire again from another angle. To the enemy, it felt like multiple units rotating positions, a layered defense. In reality, it was the same exhausted soldiers moving through the mud, following one man's plan. Hours passed. German commanders hesitated. Why commit armor at night against a position that might be stronger than it appeared? Why risk losses when daylight would reveal the enemy clearly? So they waited, and waiting changed everything. Behind the lines, Allied units reorganized. Supplies moved. Engineers repaired damaged roads. Artillery repositioned. Reinforcements arrived where they were needed most, not knowing that a single officer was buying them those hours with nothing but discipline and deception. At dawn, German armor finally advanced, but now it was too late. Allied artillery was ready. Air support was inbound. The flank was no longer exposed. What should have been a breakthrough became a costly delay. When the officer finally received new orders to withdraw, he did so without celebration. No speeches, no medals in sight. Just tired men walking away from a position that, on paper, had never mattered. The battle reports barely mentioned his name, but historians would later note something unusual. An entire German movement, involving tanks, infantry, and artillery, had been delayed by less than 100 men at a crossroads that was never supposed to hold. All because one officer understood that sometimes winning isn't about advancing. It's about knowing when to stop others from moving. War is often remembered through massive offensives and famous generals, but history also turns on quiet decisions made in the dark by people whose names almost disappeared. One decision, one night, enough time to change the outcome. If stories like this deserve to be remembered, leave a like. Subscribe for more true stories from World War II, moments that didn't look heroic, until history caught up with them.